Hi everybody, so this is an instructional video on how to do the Fahrenheit 451 project. So I am going to tell you this video is going to be a little bit on the lengthy side because I'm explaining each one of the selections or options you have, so it is going to be a little bit lengthy. So just a forewarning on that. Okay, so um, with this, you are also going to be required to do a double-sided journal entry. It's part of the project. It is worth points. So that is a separate video, and hopefully after you see this, you'll watch that or vice versa, and it will all make sense. Okay, so that what you're going to do, and this is the double-sided entry that I was talking about. So you have a couple of options. So you are going to have five options for your project. So one is you're going to create your own dystopian society. Two, you're going to write your own children's book. Three, fighting for banned books. Four, apathetic society fulfilled. So we'll talk about that. And then creating your own propaganda. So I will tell you, and not to help you select it anyway or choose. Just from the past, the most popular choices of these are creating your own dystopian society. I have several of you that are starting to write things that are very similar to this already on your own. So this might be something that fits into your creative vice. The children's book is something that's extremely popular in the past, and then creating your own propaganda. These two are a little bit more, I want to say, difficult, not difficult, maybe a little more challenging, but if it fits into what you want to look into for research and that you want to do, then that's totally up to you. But all five are great options. Just wanted to give you an idea of kind of what's been popular over time. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do, like I said, is that double journal entry. And like I mentioned before, it is in a separate instructional video, but you will be doing that first. So once you're done with that, then you're going to look here and you're going to work on this multimedia presentation. So your first option is creating a dystopian society. So you have a couple of options here. So what you're going to do is you're going to imagine you have the power to create a brand new society, dystopian or utopian. So dystopian and utopian are things that we have talked about, and by the time the assignment comes around, you will be well versed on them. I don't want to take time right now to cover it because this video is going to be long enough. So basically, what would your society be like? What would its guiding principles be? Your task to create an original creative society based on a research form of government. You will create an informational presentation describing your society. It's going to be broken down into sections with appropriate headings and other informational features, which talk about that in a sec. What I do not want is you repeating your favorite movie like The Hunger Games or any other dystopian or utopian society that you've seen in movies. This is you creating your own. So if you don't feel that you can do that without kind of borrowing, then maybe pick something else. Okay, so it has to be you creating your own. So things you could possibly use for this: PowerPoint, Google Slides, Pictochart, or Prezi. So in the assignment directions, Pictochart and Prezi are here. So if you would like to try those, you're more than welcome to. If you feel more comfortable using PowerPoint, then please do that, or Google Slides, whichever you feel more comfortable with. Okay, so in your introduction, you're going to draw the reader into your society, give background information, and write a thesis based on a motto that exemplifies the foundations of your society. So your society basically has to have a motto or something that they live by. You're going to use logical organization and headings to describe your society and how its elements and government fit exemplifies the motto. Consider giving information on government structure, settings, important figures, laws, economy, environment, education, classes, culture, problems, etc. So those are some things that you can think about adding in. You do not need to add all of those things in. If you want to focus on 2 or 3 things, that would be fantastic. Okay. Conclusion: develop a satisfying conclusion that summarizes your society And then what's really important for this is that you absolutely are going to need some form of visuals, whether that's graphs, whether you draw like what your society is going to look like, maps, diagrams, propaganda logo, whatever that may be. But you do need some form of visual. The other thing that you absolutely have to have for this assignment is a work cited page. So you have to list any works referenced in your bibliography, not your bibliography, sorry, in your double-sided journal entries. You are going to be looking at that information. So you need to make sure that the research that you're doing here is transferred into your actual project and that you're listing it as your source and your citing. So the research questions are going to guide your research. So things that you want to look for and start researching, and that's going to kind of go over into that double-sided journal entry that we're talking about. For this, it's what are characteristics of a dystopian society or a utopian, depending on which one you want to do, and what type of government is the most oppressive. So those are questions that can guide that research for you, okay? So this is option one. I can tell you I've had students do this in the past and they've done very well. Some students are already starting to write things like this out, and they just wanted to further that. If it interests you, that's fine. If it doesn't, that's fine too. So the second option that you have is to create a children's book. So this is very popular. I will tell you it's probably, I'm not going to say it's the easiest, but it is, it's going to be pretty, it's going to be a little easier than some of the other ones. I will tell you that. And I'm not changing all this stuff around. So what you're going to do is you're a famous children's literature author who's been asked to give in a creating an ABC book to make Fahrenheit 451 suitable for a young audience. You will create an ABC book using 8 to 10 sequential letters of the alphabet using important words, people, or phrases from Fahrenheit 451. You may want to make sure to capture the theme of the novel, but you'll need to remember your target audience as well. So your research questions here is how to make a good children's book and how do writers convey theme in children's books. So that's going to lead your research. So for this, some things I want to emphasize that I've seen in the past that have been issues. So number one is that 8 to 10 sequential letters means you don't have to start from the beginning, but if you want to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, that's 8, right? And it's sequential. Let's say you want to start with H, then you're going to go H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. Does that all make sense? It has to be sequential. So you can't do A, B, Z, Y, T, S. It has to be in some logical order, right? In that sequential order. The other thing that I want to make sure you know is that what's required is that it has to do with Fahrenheit 451. So that means you can take one of the characters. So if you want to use Beatty, you can make Beatty your B. If you want to use fire, obviously fire is a big thing in Fahrenheit 451, then you can use F, right, for Fahrenheit 451, but it has to be sequential, right? So I don't want just a random picture of a cat. Unless there's a cat for Fahrenheit 451, you should not be just giving me a picture of a cat, okay, or a ball. There is a dog in Fahrenheit 451, I will tell you that, so a dog might be something very cool to do. But remember, you have to make it kid-friendly for your target audience who are children, okay? So you can use PowerPoint or Google Slides. You need a title of your book, obviously. You need at least 8 to 10 sequential letters. You can start anywhere on the alphabet. It gives you an example. The letters should be very big and large. It should be clear. So an example, D is for dog, soft and snuggly. something that explains the letter. Obviously, D for dog and Fahrenheit 451, that's soft and snuggly, is not accurate, so don't copy that down. Conclusion, obviously, you develop some satisfying conclusion. You have to have graphics in this. Children's books are jam-packed with pictures and graphics. So you have to have a lot of pictures and graphics here. You can refer to other children's books as examples, and yes, you have to have a works cited reference page. Okay, so number 3 is fighting for banned books. So basically, you're imagining that you're a high school English teacher. Your school has decided to ban all books on the list. So this is going to be a link for you to click onto to see other banned books. Your task is to select 2 of those books from this list and fight for those 2 books plus Fahrenheit 451, so 3 books total. You must convince your school board that these books are invaluable in the classroom and persuade them to allow you to continue to teach them. So your research questions that are going to guide you is why is whatever book banned in schools, and why is banning books for society? I can tell you we're going to touch quite a lot on this in Fahrenheit, so this might be something that some of you are going to be very comfortable with. So if this is something that you would want to choose, I say go for it. So informational, PowerPoint, Google Slides, picture chart, Prezi, presentation, whatever you would like to do, you can. You can choose to do a podcast, but you still must include visuals. Introduction. Your introduction must draw the reader into your dilemma, get background information, some type of a thesis. Body, use logical organization and headings, as well as rhetorical devices, rhetorical questions, anaphora, etc. Appeals, ethos, pathos, logos. So we talked about that as in semester 1. So we have some resources for you in the classroom that you're going to be able to refresh your memory if you happen to choose this. And that's information that you're going to convince the school board to keep the books selected. Conclusion, basically develop a satisfying conclusion that summarizes your arguments and restates your thesis. And then graphics, well, you need to include a variety of graphics about your presentation. So again, maps, charts, illustrations, diagrams, propaganda, etc. And then also that works cited page. Okay, so that is mandatory. You have to have that works cited page. So option 4 is an apathetic society fulfilled. By now, you should be clear that Ray Bradbury accurately predicted many things that are commonplace in our society today. So we're going to talk greatly about that actually before we start reading the book and during while we're reading the book. Perhaps the most frightening of these negative impact has been the negative impact of too much technology, which many of you do, and me too sometimes. And the effect it can have on the human psyche. Your task is to study and report the effects of technology on empathy and social skills. Present your findings in a multimedia presentation. So you can use any of these pieces of software that you would like to, PowerPoint, Google Slides, Prezi. Again, you can use a podcast if you would like to. Your introduction, you're going to draw the reader into your topic, connect the topic some way to Fahrenheit 451. So this is what we need to remember, is that this information here has to connect to Fahrenheit. So you can't just write how technology has made us apathetic, right? So you have to talk about how it connects to Fahrenheit 451. So the body, you're using logical organization, same thing, rhetorical devices, ethos, pathos, logos, all of those good things we've done before. You have to have a satisfying conclusion. And again, you're going to want to include graphics and your works cited page. Okay, so the last one is creating your own propaganda. This should look very familiar to all of you because we did this back in semester 1. So the reason that I said that this might be a choice for some of you is because it's familiar and it's something you've already done, so you may feel more comfortable doing it a second time. If that's the case, that is absolutely fine. But propaganda is obviously everywhere. It is typically used to influence an audience to further an agenda. Your task is to study the characteristics of propaganda, which we've already done, right? There are resources in the class um, underneath the project that are going to give you that refresher on propaganda. And you are going to create another poster. This time it's connected to Fahrenheit 451. So the research questions are what characteristics of what are the characteristics of effective propaganda, and what is propaganda used for? Again, the type of different things you can use for your project. Your introduction, you're going to draw your reader into your topic, basically writing your thesis, propaganda aims. You're using logical organizations heading. You will present the 3 posters you have selected and your evaluations of why these posters are effective or not effective based on your research. Okay, so you should also include your created poster and an evaluation of how your poster is an effective example of propaganda. Conclusion, develop a satisfying conclusion. Graphics, obviously you're including graphics. And then you can, of the posters that you're looking at and reviewing, and then you're also including your own poster. So you are evaluating 3 posters. So when you evaluate those 3 posters, what you're going to do is you are going to have to actually take a picture, snippet, whatever, and you are going to have to give me 3 examples of propaganda, right? So those 3 examples of propaganda that you're giving me do not have to relate to Fahrenheit 451. What has to relate to Fahrenheit 451 is the poster that you create, okay? So you're going to look at 3 examples of propaganda and how that correlates, and you're evaluating those, okay? So then you're looking at giving me an introduction, talking about what is happening in the propaganda, looking at whether or not the posters you selected, if they're effective or if they're not effective based on the research that you've done, and then how should, when you look at your poster, you're also evaluating your own poster and talking about how it's effective propaganda. Okay, so we will go over this in obviously Class Connects, and it will be a little bit more clear. If you have questions, you'll have time to ask whatever you need to. But there's writing involved in everything. There's some form of analysis or summary or some form of information where you're talking about the research you've done, you're talking about what you're creating. So, but just know, no matter what you do, there's writing involved in all of it. So for this, you're not just creating a poster, you're evaluating other posters and you're creating your own poster and you're talking about it, okay? So it's a process for sure. So with that, hopefully that clarifies some things for you. Like I said, we will discuss these things in a Class Connect to make it a little bit more clear. We will help sessions, obviously, to get things moving. But if you have any questions, please let me know.